Welcome to another episode of The Latest with Maya. Today, I am so happy to have a conversation with actor Michael B. Silver. Michael has been in many things, including Legally Blonde, NYPD Blue, Suits, and had a recurring role in one of my all-time favorite shows, Royal Pains.
Yes.
He has also guest starred in another one of my favorite shows, Perception. Thank you so much for being on my show. I am so excited to talk with you.
I'm so excited to talk with you too. And I guess the viewers don't know, but you and I have been trying to connect for a while, and things have been keeping us apart. So I'm really
Yeah,
excited to be here with you today.
thank you. So let's get started. So
Sure.
what has been the biggest obstacle you've overcome?
Wow, dynamite question right out of the gate. The biggest obstacle I've had to overcome, I'm going to break it into two. One is that I'm completely dyslexic. So when I read, especially in the beginning, I read like a child. And so words on a page are my enemy on some level. And I really have to I've learned how to recognize words by the outline of the shape of the word rather than the letters inside because I see them differently. So what it does is it slows me down when I'm reading a script or when I'm reading an audition or whatever. It slows me down to a crawl, like I'm in third grade, and it takes more time, of course. And I thought that was the worst possible outcome, but of course, it forces me to explore what I'm reading while I'm reading it. So I think it's been an asset as well as my biggest obstacle, or maybe I turned it into an asset.
Yeah.
Um, but my other obstacle, but the second side of that is my own brain, is my own doubts, the voices in my head that tell me that it's bad or I'm bad or nothing's happening or nothing's going to happen. And so fighting that every day is, that's a real challenge. And I feel like attitude is critically important in everything, the
Yeah.
most important thing. And we were just discussing this before you turned on the recording.
Yeah.
And so I feel like working on my attitude could be my biggest obstacle. And so I work every day to try and overcome those voices.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. Who has had the biggest impact on you professionally?
Professionally, another great question. So my grandfather was a Oscar-winning screenwriter in the 30s and 40s, and he was actually blacklisted by the House Un-American Activities Committee in 1951. And we just released a podcast about his life, and I play my grandfather. Sidney Buckman was his name, and I play him talking to his grandson, me, in 1975 when I was a kid and we were close. And so this podcast is about him telling me the story of his life. And he was a really inspirational um, person. He was very much ahead of his time, just in terms of racially back in the 30s and 40s. He was very whatever his friend group was integrated, and he was sort of fighting for racial rights. He was fighting for the workers. He co-founded the Writers Guild, and then he ended up writing Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, which is one of the most patriotic movies in history, in American history. And so professionally, I've got his Oscar on my mantle. It's actually not behind me, but I have his Oscar here, and I'm currently working with a company to take his story and make it into a movie based on this podcast. And so I think professionally, at a young age, I was exposed to not only his work but a lot of film history. Every weekend, my dad was dragging me to revival houses, and I grew to idolize my grandfather a bunch, not just professionally but personally in his sort of moral convictions. But I think I always kind of hope that I'll put my Oscar right next to his, or maybe both of mine surrounding his. And so I think professionally, that's sort of a North Star for me, is not necessarily to match him, but just inspired by his impact and his breadth of work, which was huge.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's so cool. Yeah.
It's a really great story. I'm excited to turn this into a film, because I think that the
Yeah.
themes in this story about fear and cancel culture and truth and lies and freedoms. Like those are so current, right? They're so relevant
Yeah.
now. And he was fighting that fight in the 1940s, 1950s. So, that's really someone that I emulate.
Yeah, that's incredible. Um, who has had the biggest impact on you personally?
So we were just talking about this right before we started the interview. So my nephew, Joe Jaffa, passed away last week. And we were terribly close, and he had been ill his whole life. He had a neurological disorder called neurofibromatosis, which is also called NF. And we worked with the foundation to try and raise awareness and raise money towards the foundation. But really, the work the past 33 years has been to kind of keep Joe Jaffa healthy and comfortable and having as full a life as possible. And unfortunately, last week he lost the battle, and he's in a much better place now. He'd been suffering, but I was just telling you a moment ago that I can't stop thinking about all the lessons that he's taught me and the patience and the perseverance. I always say he's like the tortoise and the hare, the turtle and the rabbit racing. He
Yeah.
was so the tortoise, just every day he moved slow, but he was determined, and he was just very much an inspiration to me in my life. Perspective as well is something he's really taught me. Like there's so many things I want and don't have and wish I could get more of, and especially in this silly business that we're in, or this wonderful silly business that we're in. There's always someone out there that you're chasing. There's always another step to keep. And I look at Joe and now from 2020 hindsight, and I'm able to see how he was all about what was important and connection and uh, laughing. He loved comedy, and he was one of the funnier people I've ever known. And he had a really tough situation, and his attitude was just every day, just wake up as the tortoise and just start moving forward and find a laugh and do some physical therapy. And, he was a real inspiration for me personally. And I can't stop thinking about, I wish I told him what an inspiration he was to me more.
Yeah, again, I'm so sorry. That's so
I
hard.
don't
I'm
mean
so
to
sorry.
bring, thank you. I don't mean to make this a
Yeah.
downer interview. I know that's just a downer way to go, but I also feel like it's where I'm at right now, and I
Yeah.
feel a deep connection with you, and I might as well just be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd much rather people just be honest instead of, just trying to like pretend like things are okay, and then I'm just like,
Absolutely.
I don't know, feel everything. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And that was Joe too. I mean, he didn't put on a mask. He didn't pretend much. He was really authentic to who he was, really genuine. See, it reminds me of you in that way, just very much about like just present and where you're at and very genuine.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so if you had a warning label, what would yours say?
That's such a good question. If I had a warning label, what would it say? Keep 30 feet back, maybe. Uh, no, that's so hard. What a great question. Um, you know, could be fun and intoxicating, but also could lead you down a dangerous path. How about that?
I like that. I like that a lot.
That's a great question. I love that question.
Thank you. Yeah. Um, what genre of movie would your life story be told as?
Oh my God, these questions are unbelievable. What genre? Okay, it's not a romantic comedy, not a horror story. You know what? I think it's a psychological thriller with a
Oh,
little bit of black comedy.
oh, okay.
I think
I,
there's some tension and there's some suspense and there's
yeah,
certainly some like what's around the next corner, but there's definitely some gallows humor and some
yeah,
black comedy laughs and some
yeah.
hilarity involved.
Yeah, I love that. I would
Maybe,
watch that.
yeah, totally. Or maybe an action comedy right? Like
Yeah.
I think of like Midnight Run, where like there's all these forces and it's chaos and there's all these things going on, but no one's really gonna
Okay.
nothing, nothing's gonna
Yeah.
go off the tracks.
Yeah. I like that. I would watch those.
Okay, good, good.
Yeah.
I'll try and get that done.
Yeah. Yeah, I rom-coms are some of my favorite movies. So I'd somehow want my life to be a rom-com, but it'd probably be more of a dark comedy, which I love those too. So
Yeah, I love that too. My grandfather, just to circle back to him for a second,
yeah.
he didn't invent, but he certainly helped popularize the whole romantic comedy genre. And he made a bunch of silly romantic comedies in the 1930s and 40s. The Awful Truth and Isadora Goes Wild and a few like crazy zany comedies. And off of that, the romantic comedy genre kind of blossomed and matured.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I'm really proud of that too.
Yeah, that's so cool. Um, so what small things bring you joy on a daily basis?
Another killer question. Certainly my kids, my family, um, dogs, being outdoors, riding a bike, going on a hike, sweating, working out in some way. Like I need those things in order to feel human and whole. But a great meal, a fantastic movie. I love showing movies to people I love that I love, like movies I love, showing them to people I love for the first time and sort of blowing their minds with some great director or performance. I love seeing my friends. I like playing poker. Um, I like playing golf. I like watching football, which is coming up. The NFL is right around the corner. That makes me happy. Makes the boys happy too. So that's a fun connective activity. I try and find things every day that make me happy, and I fight those voices that are trying to drag me down, like all of us.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah,
What about you? What makes you happy on a daily basis?
um being with spending time with my mom and my sister whenever I talk with my best friend, that always
Mm.
makes me happy. And I don't know if I have like a show I'm really obsessed with, binge watching that, or like I don't know, just watching any of my favorite shows,
Yeah, me
Es-
too. Me too.
especially when I'm not feeling good. That's
Yeah, yeah. It's like
yeah,
comfort food.
yeah,
Just laying there or sitting there and just taking in old friends.
yeah,
Yeah, it's great.
exactly.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. So what is your favorite way to procrastinate?
Oof. Without getting political, I'm a little bit obsessed with politics these days. And
Mm,
so I'm
yeah,
watching both sides and having this whole inner monologue, sometimes not an inner monologue, sometimes an outer monologue.
yeah.
But it's not a healthy thing for me. That's the dark side when I get drawn to that and I get
Yeah.
obsessed with it. But I'm very much watching that and involved with all those uh, with the election that's coming up. So there's that. I can get distracted by that. Um, hmm. The news in general, the war, like I'm just too like I think I get drawn to that and I can distract myself. Certainly emails and I was just watching on YouTube. I went down the rabbit hole and I started watching I watched Michelle Obama's speech last night and then I just kept watching more speeches. And so I went down the rabbit hole, I think a little bit.
Yeah. I think my mom kind of did the same thing. We were I don't know, we were like doing something and then I just hear these speeches on her phone and she's watching
Yes, that's what I
them
was doing.
and
I do it when
yeah.
I drive. Sometimes I just listen to it. Um, I also I'm doing a bunch of work with Audible right now. I'm writing and directing with James Patterson's company, the great author, and I'm writing and directing original Audible thrillers for them. So that's been really fun. It's been a nice little pivot for me, and the acting work. There's not a lot of pilots and movies happening right now since the strike happened. So I found a way to kind of to work in that area. And as a result, I've really investigated Audible a bunch, and I have a lot of long drives to make. And so I'm listening to all these amazing books, some of which I read in high school, some of which I never read or I pretended to read in high school because I was so dyslexic I couldn't even get through it. And my mind is sort of being opened up to all these books across my life that I never really invested in. My sister is a big reader and writer. She's a huge writer, but she loves to read, and she's always been like, "Oh, you should read, Gabriel Garcia Marquez," or and I've always kind of rolled my eyes and said, "Yeah, I did." But Audible's really opened that up for me, and so that's another way for me to not kill time, but use time wisely, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember whenever I had to read something for in high school, whenever my class like English class we were assigned a book,
yeah,
it would take me forever to read, like, and I wouldn't really, unless I'm like really into a book, I don't really retain anything.
I hear you.
So I would like have to reread it, and then eventually I'd just like be looking at the cliff notes. So I'd be like, I read it, but I'm looking at the
I did that too. I mean,
notes.
I think we all did that. Or, I mean, some people love reading and are great at it and stuff. I really struggled. So I certainly read the Cliff Notes. And before your time, there was a thing called the Monarch Notes, which were the same thing, but 2 decades earlier, 3 decades maybe. But yeah, I
Yeah.
did a lot of that too. I just
Yeah.
listened to the book One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which is a really amazing Milos Forman movie, very dark and mature audiences. But I read the book for the first time, and I'd seen the movie 30 times or whatever, 20 times. But the book was so amazing. And of course, books fill in so much information that you don't get from movies. So that was a really fun thing too. But I'm familiar with the Cliff
Yeah.
Notes, believe me. And now
Yeah.
Chat GPT, you can just say summarize or give me the themes or whatever. I don't know how any
Yeah.
kids do homework these days.
Yeah. Yeah. My yeah, best friend was like try having when chat whatever it's called.
GPT, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Came out, we were talking about something, and so he was like typing what we were talking about into it, and it was coming up with, I don't know, all these like kind of crazy things. And I don't know, I was like, I don't like that idea.
I hear you.
Yeah,
It's a scary,
so
it's a scary idea. I agree. It's a scary
yeah,
prospect. Who knows where it's heading?
yeah. Yeah, so I was just telling him, I'll let you do all that,
Yeah,
and I'm just gonna avoid that as much as possible.
I avoided too. I don't know how long we'll be able to avoid it, but I avoided too.
Yeah.
I'm not interested. Not yet, at least.
Yeah. Um, so I am pop culture obsessed, and I go in stages of shows that I cannot stop watching. Is there a show that you are currently obsessed with?
You know what? I'm just finishing the Game of Thrones sequel. I have one last episode to hit. I thought Game of Thrones was just beyond brilliant, and I'm struggling. It's not quite the same, but that's the show that I'm sort of obsessed with now. The last show I got really obsessed with was Succession. I don't know if that's on your radar, but I missed the whole party, and then a couple months ago just dove in and did the whole series in 1 month or whatever, and I was deeply, deeply obsessed with that show, with the personalities. It felt really repulsive, certainly, but familiar and Shakespearean. And I also grew up in New York City, along with a bunch of people who sort of aspired to be that or actually are that. So it feels like a world that I understand, or at least was close to. And it was just so well crafted and written and directed and acted. It was just amazing. So that's the last one that I got totally crazy obsessed with.
Oh, cool.
It was fun.
Yeah, I oh, sorry.
No, go on.
Oh, I was just saying my family and I, since Royal Pains came back on Netflix, we've been rewatching that. Um, so I've been staying up, like we've all been staying up way too late just watching episodes, because even though we've seen all of it multiple times, we still want to keep watching.
Well, let me tell you, and you spoke to Mark Feuerstein and Ben Shankman, so I'm sure you already know. But that show was just a dream come true. It was, Michael Rausch, who's the showrunner, and directed a bunch of them and wrote many of them. He's my oldest friend since we were 4 years old, 3 years old. Our moms were best friends. So, and our dads too. So working for him with him was amazing. He let me direct an episode, which was an incredible experience. But he also hired Mark Feuerstein, who grew up not with us, but in an adjacent school. And he became family quickly. We've known him now for 30 or 5 years. And so Mark is that. And Ben was my roommate in college. And so I
Wow.
connected those two. And obviously, Ben is super genius and the sweetest person ever, and so brilliant and so talented. And
Yeah.
then everyone, and Paulo, I think you
Yeah.
mentioned Paulo too,
Yeah.
who was part of that group, and then the crew and all the cast and everybody. It was just it felt like working with your family. It felt like working with a bunch of people who you love and trust and can't wait to hang out with. And then we're also making a show together. It was really a dream come true. I love
Yeah.
that.
Oh, I love that.
I
Yeah.
miss that. Every time you walk on set, you kind of make a family, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of relationships that start up, and you're all relying on each other with a common goal, and it's sort of this war that you're in, everyone together, and everyone has their job, and there's something really intoxicating about that.
Yeah.
But when you're with people who you grew up with, who you want to hang out with on Saturday night as well, there's
Yeah.
a real magic to the work, and it just becomes a joy. Every day was a joy.
Yeah.
So I love that the show is good enough for you to love it, and your family to gather around it, and for it to be comfort food for you.
Yeah.
But for me, it was just the warmest place to like show up and
Yeah.
go to work. I
Oh,
miss
I
it.
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of my all-time favorite shows. My friend who he is always joking with me that he's like, you're one of those people that say like everything is your favorite, every show is your favorite show. So then I actually made him a list, and so I was like, okay, these I think I'd say are my favorite shows, and Royal Pains is one of them.
I
So
love that. I love that. I'd love to see that list sometime.
yeah, I can send it to you.
Yeah, please. Please. I'm
Yeah.
always looking for good shows to like to jump into. There's so many
Yeah.
options out there. And
Yeah.
I mean, you miss things just because there's so many things to see. So I'd love to see what you love.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Great. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Um, what is something that people are always surprised to learn about you?
What is something that people are surprised to learn about me? It's such a hard question. What are people surprised to
Yeah.
learn about you?
I I don't know. I feel like it's people who who don't know me that well. I feel like they're sometimes surprised to learn about some of my other interests, that it's not just pop culture. So, I don't know. I think yeah, people who don't really know me that well are kind of surprised can be
Yeah,
surprised about that, but I'm not really sure.
that makes sense. I think I
Yeah.
think people are surprised to learn that I can't read like a normal
Mm,
person, like an adult,
mm,
um, or that I love horror movies. I don't know. A lot of me is like hopefully is like what you see is what you get, and
yeah.
so I feel like I wear a lot of it on my sleeve, and I try and be me,
Yeah.
and so there are little bits and pieces. I'm sure I'm blanking on a million things, but I don't need much sleep. People are amazed at how little sleep I need.
And
Sometimes I can get away with really burning the candle at both ends and just keep functioning. I'm sure I'm not functioning as well as I could be.
mm.
But my sleep habits are pretty abnormal. Oh, here's something people are surprised to learn about me. I just realized. Sometimes I wake up at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, and I'm standing in the kitchen in my underwear, spooning Nutella into my mouth.
Oh.
And I wake up and I'm sleep eating, and it's almost always Nutella with a spoon. And then I realize how crazy it is, and I put it back, and I wake up and do it the next night. Yeah,
That's really funny.
that's a surprising one, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, is there someone who, without fail, always makes you laugh?
Joe Jaffa. Joe Jaffa
Mm.
used to always make me laugh. I would show up in whatever condition he was in, and he had some video or some song or some meme or something that was just hilarious. He always knew what was going to get me. And last week, he showed me on his phone a song that had been written by ChatGPT. We were just talking about this,
Yeah.
and it was very dirty. He loved dirty humor. And so that was Joe Jaffa made me laugh at every time I saw him. I had a good laugh.
Oh, I love that.
You know who else though? Mark Feuerstein. He
Yeah.
is just a ball of energy, and he's the sweetest guy in the world. But he
Yeah.
is just it's just coming so fast, and some of them don't hit, which he knows, he
Yeah.
acknowledges, but some of them hit, and
Yeah.
he's got great time, and he's so quick, so
Yeah.
clever, and he's
Yeah.
a really funny
Yeah.
influence.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when I interviewed him, just
Yeah.
we were just like talking and going off on tangents, and it was and laughing a lot. And so afterwards I was telling my family about the interview, just laughing. And when I released it, my mom watched it when I released it on YouTube, and she was just like, afterwards, she was just, we were talking about it because she was just laughing from
Yeah,
the conversations he and I were having.
he's amazing. He's
Yeah,
amazing, and his mind just goes so fast. I like
yeah,
working with him on Royal Pains. There were so many moments where he'd solve problems or he'd fix things while we're in the middle of a take, or
yeah,
he also directed so well. He's just a really brilliant dude, and he's so funny. He's
yeah,
so
is yeah, yeah. Um, do you have any irrational fears?
I mean, heights. I don't like heights. I can deal with like insects, fire. That's not irrational, I guess. Um, Irrational fears. I don't like I have a littleish dog, but I don't like little dogs. They freak me out.
Mm,
I'm always afraid they're
mm,
gonna bite me, bite like take little pieces out of me. Oh,
mhm.
well, fish. I don't like swimming when there's fish around. I have an irrational fear that they're gonna bite on me. I'm trying to think of what else. I don't know. I don't have that many crazy irrational fears. Do you have a lot? Do you have other fears?
Yes, I
You
have.
do.
Yeah, I do. I always joke that I feel like my brain is just one big irrational fear. And so my mom and my sister always have to tell me that is not going to happen, or that is like
Oh,
highly improbable.
that's who I am. I'm the guy who's like, it's not going to happen. The plane's not going to go down. They never go down. What are
Yeah.
some of the things that you irrationally fear?
Um, I don't know. Um I don't know. I get like, I don't know. I have like this like fear of germs, and so I just I just always freak out whenever there's like somebody who um is like walking past to me who coughs, and even if
Oh,
it's not directly on me, I'm
freaks you
like,
out.
yeah, I my brain kind of just goes um uh yeah, just like spirals. And there's another one of my favorite shows. There's this episode where they're walking in a hospital, and one of the characters passes somebody who sneezes, and he just goes, now I have what he has. I remember when I rewatched that episode and I told my mom and my sister, I was like, I've never related to a character more. That is exactly what I would do.
That's so funny. I always
Yeah.
feel like I don't worry about germs. I feel like there's germs everywhere all the time. I just don't even think about it. But I know
Mm.
people who are
Yeah.
very obsessed with germs.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they won't go to like a public bathroom, or
Yeah.
they won't walk in a hospital unless they have to. And
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't even think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I freak out when I have to use a public bathroom.
Yeah, people freak out. I know. I know people.
Yeah.
I know people who won't do it. They'd
Yeah.
rather pee themselves.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, I don't do well. I then
Yeah,
always freak out and yeah.
I hear you. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
You better go before you leave the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when yeah, whenever my like family and I like we went to LA and we go to try to go to LA every year and we went in May and it's every time like by the end of the trip I'm just like I'm so excited to go home and not have to use a public bathroom. So,
Totally. Totally. I understand.
yeah.
I understand. Well, next time you come out to LA, we should all me and you and Mark and I think Ben's in New York. Paulo, I think is still here. Maybe we all go out and grab a burger or something.
I would love that.
That'd be really nice. Let us know the
Yeah.
next time you come back out and we'll arrange something.
Hey, I would love that.
Yeah, that'd be really nice. I'd love to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Um, I just have one more question for
Yeah.
you, if that works. Um, so I love inspiring and motivational quotes, and this week the one that spoke to me is by Hans Christian Andersen. And it says, "Life itself is the most wonderful fairy tale." Is there a quotation that has inspired you lately?
I love that quote. I love that quote. I took a picture of a quote I saw last week. Let me just find it. And it was by Martha Washington, of all people. And Martha Washington said, hang on one sec, I'm going to find it. One sec. Here it is. Martha Washington said, I've learned from experience that the greater part of our happiness or misery depends upon our dispositions and not upon our circumstances. I've learned from experience that the greater part of our happiness or misery depends upon our dispositions and not upon our circumstances, which is really just saying attitude is everything, which is where you and my conversation started. And I was talking about Joe Jaffa and his amazing attitude. And I just think that, especially in these times, in these crazy moments right now, we need to hang on to, we need to keep within ourselves and have a positive disposition. And as ugly or as beautiful, I guess, as ugly as the world is getting and becomes, and with all the problems and wars and elections and climate and everything, to remember that, that there's beauty out there and that there's connection and there's love, and to keep yourself mentally healthy these days because all the forces are fighting against it.
Yeah.
I love that
Oh,
Martha Washington quote.
yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah. Well, that was my final question for you. I have just had the best time talking with you. I so appreciate your taking the time. So
I
thank
so
you.
appreciate you, Maya, and I'm so glad that we met. And I feel like we met at this moment for a reason. And I watched a bunch of your interviews, and I'm just a huge fan of yours.
Oh, thank you. I'm a huge fan of yours.
Thank
So
you. Thank you. Mark and I and whoever, whatever other Royal Pains crew are out here, we'd love to take you to dinner when you come back to LA.
oh, thank you. I would love that. Thank you.
You're welcome. It was great to meet you, Maya. It was great to meet
Me
your mom
too.
too.
Yeah, I know she loved meeting you.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah,
Take care. I hope we talk again soon.
too. Me too. I would love that. Whenever you wanna come back on, I'd love to have you.
Anytime. Anytime.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Maya.
Thank you. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Me too, you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye. And that's a wrap on today's edition of The Latest with Maya.